Yes, you are. We're back. Hey,
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I wonder, like, has something happened that caused us to not produce videos for some time? I don't know. What's really happened? Oh, right, the world came to an end.
Yeah. Remember, it's a hoax. It's not real.
It's not.
It's just engineered by the government to do a reset and all that. I'm not going to get into this. Anyways,
our politics are pretty clear.
Yeah.
So I'm a leftist Canadian communist. So anyway,
so I'm your host for Man for Wolf Games. I'm Dave, and today's special guest tonight is
Chris from Deus Ex Machina.
And tonight we're going to be talking about the 5 rules that ruin good games, I believe is what we classify this.
Well, I don't know if it ruins, but it does. Like, you look at a game and go, this is great, but why is this rule in here?
Or you look at this rule and you're like, yeah, I'm tossing that out with the baby water.
We were taking, you thought it was dealing with the
mechanics.
And for me, like I said, I believe that a game that has a bad mechanic is a bad game, but you could have a bad rule in a good game.
Yes.
Right. Because if you don't care for deck building, you're not going to like Dune Imperium. Is this one of those situations? I hate deck building. Well, it's like, but I like Dune Imperium. That doesn't make any sense. Deck building is 80% of that game.
Yeah. But you can't have games like Master of the Galaxy and love bag building mechanic, but hate how they implemented it in that game.
That is a perfect example. But that is a bad rule in a bad game.
This is very true.
But that's a single rule that does that. There's actually several rules in that game which are bad, which make it a bad game.
Yep.
But if the game was fantastic, but it had that one black cube rule, you're like, you almost had it. You were almost there.
Yeah.
But that game also has other issues.
Yeah, and if you have to throw out most of the rules to make it a good game, then really, is it a good game? No, because you just rewrote the game.
Yeah, exactly.
You bought the components.
I like homebrewing to make a good game better. I generally won't homebrew a game to make a bad game good.
I won't homebrew to change enough of the rules that I feel like I rewrote the rule book, because at some point you're just like, all right, I'm going to play something where I didn't have to write the game myself, and then, well, why am I not getting paid money for making this a better game?
Yeah, because I've done homebrew, and I generally don't do homebrew. I used to do homebrew videos on Dice Tower, and I stopped doing it because I didn't want to fix other people's games, and I wanted to make my own. But a good example of this is a game called Calico. Now, I think Calico could be a good game. I didn't put it on this list. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yep.
Because Calico is a game where it's the same idea of there's always a certain number of tiles to choose from, and then you grab one on your turn, and then you always have 2 in your hand, and you have to put one of those 2 down. So you have to put one of those 2 tiles in your hands down, and you pick up one of the 3 tiles that are available.
Okay.
The issue is that may appear like a wide variety of choice. It isn't. And I've never had a game where you've been so angry at other people taking your tiles. But they made it 3 for a very good reason. They made it 3 to create rage.
And you can see what the tiles are?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can see it, and you can see it's coming. You can see another player taking your tile before you. Yep. I played twice. And in one game, a player that almost always wins. Whenever we play with this person, it's a fight between them and me. It's because I generally win a lot of games, but they're the only people that give me a run for my money, and they very often will win a game. If they're not going to win, then I'm going to win. And they got last place. So because the choices are so limited, if you put out 5 tiles, and you have 2 in your hand, that gives you a bit more leeway.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those games where if the fewer people you play with, the fewer tiles come out, and as a result, you may never get the tile you want. And nothing's more frustrating than having a game where you can never get the tiles you want just because of that random number generator.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a game where you could alter it. And we're thinking about homebrewing it, but it doesn't change the fact that I don't think Calico's a good game because this core rule is in there.
Yeah.
Now, if you amend it, it might get better for me. Yeah. But from the inset, I don't like it. So this is listed for me are games that I do like to a point, but I also think that it has this one annoying aspect.
Most of mine are games that I do like, but they have one rule that I usually change. And then there's one which is on my number one rule. It's just it's a mess.
All right, let's get going. This
All right.
is going to take a minute.
1, 2, 1, 2, 4.
Smashing. Okay, it happens, folks.
Yes.
It's surprised it didn't take.
You
longer.
should just do a compilation of just our.
Yes, but that'll be an hour long.
All right. So coming at
number 5.
Coming
yes.
at number 5, I'm going to take a shot at the Kingmaker, and that is Gloomhaven.
Right away.
Taking a shot at Gloomhaven.
Is this starting fresh, folks?
So my biggest problem with Gloomhaven is the whole hidden planning from your own teammates to give the illusion of real-time strategy. I hate that rule. It's stupid. It makes absolutely no sense because anybody who knows anything about tactical strategy, or they have anybody who's in law enforcement or anything like that, they make a plan before they go into something. They have hand gestures. They have communication. Otherwise, you shoot your buddy.
In a real-time game, there's a voice chat.
There's a voice chat. So to say that this makes it so it's like that, no, because otherwise you have exactly what happens in that game. All right, I'm going to go at number low. Oh, I'm going at number high. Next thing you know, you stabbed your buddy in the back because he walked in front of you. It's like, oop.
No, I also might add that I know several people that play Gloomhaven, and nobody plays with secret rules.
Yep.
So that's your number 5?
That's my number 5.
No, it's not that one. Yet. I refer to something called the flop of 5. The flop of 5 is this assumed accepted rule that no one is ever able to prove to me is a mechanically balanced system. This is popular in not 1, not 2, not 4, not 5, but dozens of deck builders. But I specifically bring up Star Realms and Ascension.
Yeah.
Star Realms has it worse because Ascension at least has a secondary way of acquiring points.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 2 ways to acquire points, and so what you might be going for might be something someone else is going for. But in Star Realms, everyone's trying to kick the other person. So when you have the randomness of deck building and the randomness of the flop of 5, what you create is a situation where it's very easy to determine who's going to win, not by skill or just simply by who gets to get certain cards first. And I always bring up that one game between Will Wheaton and that one Magic player where he almost defeated up until the last second one of the most well-regarded Magic players in the world. I go, well, if she was well-regarded, Will Wheaton shouldn't have had a chance. It's just the randomness of that game that speaks to it. And I say Ascension has the flop of 5, Star Realms has the flop of 5, but they're both designed by similar people. I know there's some carryover staff. But Legendary does this. We were just talking about
Clank.
Dune. Clank does this. Dune does this. Almost every single deck builder.
Although I like Clank. The other ones...
I think Dune Imperium is probably the best game I've ever played that has a deck building option with the flop of 5.
Yeah.
But it also has a completely different set of mechanics. So you could run 2 or 3 turns without even buying cards. Yeah. But in deck building, that's basically the entire game.
By the way, we weren't talking about Ascension badly, Brittany. I know you're standing in the wings, but we are. We were. So anyways.
So that's my number 5. I disagree with the flop of 5 in specifically Star Realms. I tied it with Ascension because I played both those games. But let's be honest, the flop of 5 only works in cooperative deck building.
So my next one is going to take a shot at another Kingmaker, and I've got one of them right here. So D&D's board game series. Now,
that's pretty generic. D&D board games.
The thing that everyone's going to take offense with is they're going to say, well, you hate this. No, I love this series. This is just one of 8 that are behind me. The problem that I have in that game is one very simple rule, and I change it every single time, which is that on your phase, the heroes move, and then as soon as you encounter a monster, your turn ends. The monsters then get to activate, and they get to attack you, meaning that you have no chance to respond before they attack you first. So you never have an attack of opportunity. They always have the attack of opportunity. That's just stupid. It's a stupid rule. So it changes that you make it so that you finish your movement and you can also then attack, or you attack and then you move. Quite a simple change. And everyone's like, well, that's going to make it so that it's unbalanced because the monsters will die easier. It's like, well, no, because trust me, making that one small change, I have seen many times where you miss because it's a die roll. So even though you got to attack first, it's like, ha, oh, that's a 1.
And the only thing about D&D, you'll know that in higher levels, combat generally will be determined very, very quickly because of how punishingly brutal a lot of the spells and magical abilities monsters have. If you allow a beholder to get a round off, he wipes out half the party.
Yeah.
So you have to do everything in your power to make sure you go first, so you take him out before he has a chance to wipe out half your party.
Yeah, exactly. And with the D&D board games, when you're only doing 1 or 2 damage and you encounter a guy who can take up to 3, great. So now your first turn, he already kicked your butt. You didn't get to attack. So now you've got, maybe you can get 2 of his damage off before he activates again and kicks your butt. And yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. It's a horrible rule. I still have no idea why 8 iterations and they still haven't changed that one rule. But hey, whatever.
My number 4, I was going one direction and I switched it over for the same title. This is actually one of my favorite games that the year I played it. It's actually an older game. They had a re-release. The game is called Kanban.
Oh, yeah.
I really like Kanban. I'm becoming a really big fan of Vital Lacerda. I would love to be able to collect all his games, but I would also like to pay rent because of Vital Lacerda games. I would love...
It's a lot like those restoration games where you're just like, ooh, they're restoring, then it's just like, oh, that's not a restoration price.
Yeah, it's just like, I would love to get On Mars.
Yeah.
But On Mars is $140.
Yeah.
Like, I only snagged Vinhos and Lisboa because I got them used.
Mm.
Well, not used, they were mint condition, but I still got them, secondhand.
Yeah. And
I would love Concordia. I'd love to get On Mars. He has a new game on Kickstarter right now during the filming of this episode dealing with the weather.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And it looks fantastic, but it's really expensive. But Kanban is one of the few where you can get a lower price point. Not the EV version, because the EV version is insanely overpriced. It's like $170.
Yeah. See, I picked up recently for Kickstarter. I grabbed the American is he American? Richard Launius? I think he's American, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I usually can compare Richard to Vital for games and stuff, because I mean, you're talking the father of the Arkham Horror and the Eldritch Horror series and all that stuff. So and you got Vilsera, which is like the Euro placement game. So they're kind of, that's the way I compare them. So his one was Thunder Road, I think it is, that just was on Kickstarter. That one was a good one. Stock car racing.
Yeah. So Kanban is, if you get the basic old version of Kanban, you can secure it for like $60. And I love it. It's so complex. It is so meaty. But there's a couple elements of the game. There's one element called certification. And I didn't realize until I played the game a second time that if you just focus entirely on certification, you win the game. It's a bit of a short-sighted mechanic on his part, but that's not what I came up with. What I came up with is the character called Sandra. Now, in Kanban, it is no matter what you play, no matter what version, this is not a third-player surrogate. She pops up in every version. She is a unit that moves across the board, blocks out certain options, so you can't pick them, and then when she clears the board, everyone gets a review. And if you're on the same space as her, she rates your development. And if you have achieved a certain level in certification or certain achievements, in a nice Sandra game, she rewards you. In a mean Sandra game, if you don't achieve the reward, you get punished. So that she has 2 mechanical elements. One is that if she's on your space, when she's there, she will rate your development. And when she clears the board, she rates everybody and then resets back at the beginning. Now, I don't know a single person that plays this game that likes the Sandra mechanic, right? I don't know anybody who plays with the mean Sandra, because all it does is push somebody down or arbitrarily push somebody else down.
Yep.
And the reward is nice, but It's also really hard to do in the first place. Like I think when I played twice, and at no point has Sandra ever rewarded a single player.
Yeah.
All she does is basically circle the board, start this thing, and once she does it a couple times, then you advance the phase and so forth. There are easier ways to do that. So I think the existence of Sandra is very annoying. It's very clunky. I don't think the game needs it.
Yeah.
So that's my number 4 choice, Sandra in Kanban.
Cool. All right. My number 3 is more of how they implemented a rule, and it's in the game that at least I like, which is Uboot. And it's one of my favorite games, but it's hard to get to the table unless you have really dedicated players.
I still haven't got to the table.
You can have a great game with a certain setup of players, and then you change one player from like the captain to the navigator, and all of a sudden the play that just falls apart because you have a captain that can't make a decision and you all die. It's happened, trust me.
I know, you told me.
Yeah. My problem with that game is, though, you already have a certain limited amount of commands you can give out in the game, and they split up the command of flood a tube, fire a torpedo, arm the torpedo, and aim the torpedo. 4 commands on something like maybe when you only have 8 that day. So you can maybe get off 2 torpedoes if that's all you do is fire torpedoes. That's stupid. It should be 1 command for the whole torpedo things. That's it. So it's like, okay, we're going to spend 1 command so we can aim this thing. We can, as soon as we fire the torpedo, that's it. We have to spend another command to go through the whole sequence again. I would be okay with that, and I almost changed that rule because it makes absolutely no sense that I'd be like, okay, aim the periscope, okay? Oh yeah, and flood the torpedo. Right, that's a good idea. I can't believe we didn't flood the torpedo too. We were going to fire a torpedo, but we didn't flood the torpedo. Stupid. No. It makes absolutely no sense that they broke it up that way, other than to punish the player and drive them into the low morale, causing them to have to do stuff that purposely punishes the player and makes it so that they're operating at a handicap. So, yeah. Actions and how they're broken up in Uboot is annoying. You have to change some of that sometimes, and I find I have to change how the rules work with that just a little bit. And sadly, I think their implementation of that command mechanic is what I think has killed the game, because I think they've abandoned it. Development on it, Phalanx Games. They focused on their video game version of it, really.
Which I've never tried.
It's good. But they pretty much have abandoned the board game, I think, which is sad. So that was my number 3, and that is multiple actions for 1 action, a U-boot.
Number 3 for me is a very, very interesting game in the fact that I like it, a lot of people like it, and it's riddled with bad rules. It's one of the few games where I doggedly still play it. We homebrew these rules because we don't care for them, some of them, not all of them. And I think it's because I spent this much money, I'm going to enjoy this game, and we want to play it the way we want to play it, which happens to be our tagline for this show. And so it's not like one rule. I guess I have to pick one rule, but it's one game, and it's called Nemesis. And we'll throw a stick figuring out which of the many rules that they've decided arbitrarily that don't really make any sense, that don't work, or especially me. You could start with the whole semi-co-op nature of the game generally, which I still think is not terribly balanced.
Yep.
But let's talk about the random health of monsters. It has 2 health, you do 1 point of damage. You do another point of damage, it only has 3 health. You do another point of damage, it has 5 health. You do another point of damage at 2, and it has 2 health and dead. What? Like, you never know if you kill something, which I can see, and it makes sense, but there's nothing more frustrating than a creature that you see has 2 hit points, and for some reason you still can't kill it, even though you pump multiple shots into it. However,
I would homebrew that to be as soon as the monster spawns, you roll, and it's like, okay, this is how much health points to that period. Done.
Yeah. That would make sense. The other one I really have issues with is when you pick up a gun, it might not have any ammo. Like, you spend all the effort, and you go, oh my god, I've gotten this gun. It has no ammo. And I know that the game wants to have a starvation of resources, but nothing is more annoying than getting a new gun and having it be empty.
See, I could see where you could make it so that, like, it's a 66%. So take a 6-sided dice and 5 and 6, it's empty. 1, 2, 3, 4, it's full.
It still adds a random chance. You still have a situation where your entire life is dependent on you do the search and suddenly you pull out a weapon and go, yeah, I pulled out a weapon, and like, oh, it has no bullets. It is completely worthless because the chance of you finding ammo.
But it'd be a higher chance than however they're doing it.
Well, no, they're just, you roll a die and you get that many bullets kind of thing, which is basically the same thing. I can't remember if that's the exact rule, but it's still, it is a situation that when you pick up a gun, there's a more than decent possibility that it is empty, which is very frustrating. And like I said, right from the get-go, after our first game, we hated it. Like, I don't want to go through all that hype and find a gun that has no ammo. So that is literally we do play fully co-op, but there are fully co-op rules. We still run with the randomized monster health, but we threw out that rule of empty weapons right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that's my number 3, which is empty clips in Nemesis.
Okay. My number 2 is for a game that you can't even get anymore. So, it's a stab in the dark for bringing this one up, but it is Leviathans, which is...
Going old school, are we?
I am. So we're there. Which is the whole steampunk...
Steampunk airship, right?
Steampunk airships. Yeah. The problem I have with it was complex rules. They actually had designed a rule set, which was called Lieutenant, and then Captain, and I think there was even supposed to be an Admiral rule set. And basically all it did was that each of the rule sets either made it more complex, more things to deal with. I can tell you right now, the base rule set was already complex. So to give you, and that was Lieutenant, so to go and say there was going to be 2 more levels of complexity, this game, it dies on its complex rule set, because when you look at...
But you enjoy the game.
I do, but it's a hard one to get to the table, because as soon as you lay down the ship schematic for someone so they can look at how they're going to get damaged, it's overwhelming. There's so much iconography. There's so many colors. It's hard to take it in and not go, oh my. So it's a very complex game. We should probably try it sometime. I'm sure you'd have fun with it.
Sure.
So that was my number 2. That is Complex Rules and Leviathans by Catalyst Game Labs.
Is a rule or a type of mechanic that everybody hates?
Take that.
Take that as one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Another...
I don't mind it, but a lot of people hate the trader mechanic.
Yeah, trader mechanic side, but I'm thinking even more reviled.
Player elimination, probably.
Even more reviled in some circles. And that is roll to move. Oh. You think, like, what games? Some games, some people, like YouTube personalities, have openly mocked games that have roll to move. Mm-hmm. And some games have found ways of playing with that idea without playing with the idea. But most of the time, a roll to move is considered a sign of a bad game.
Yeah. And
yet it's in Gaia.
It's also in Shadows of Brimstone.
Yeah, but it's in Gaia.
Yeah. And
nothing is more frustrating than having this cool-ass spacecraft with a die 12 movement, and then you roll a 1. And yeah, you can flip over your impulse drive and get a little bit more movement, but nothing says, oh boy, did I waste a turn. Oh, what's my husband doing? Oh, he has a die 12? Oh, I rolled a 12. I move across the entire universe and get my mission success. There was one time where I completed 2 objectives, 2 cards in one single turn, because I managed to get 12 movement, and I shortcutted through a warp gate and managed to fly half the entire length, the entire board near the end of the game to get to the destination. So I was like, oh, ended there? Good. I have another action? Okay, I'll do another movement. And I flew to the other side of the map and delivered another cargo. And I got like 5 points and won the game. And my wife stared at me with this blood-soaked eyes like...
You're sleeping on the couch.
Yeah, like... Are you kidding me? Yeah, and the thing is, she loves Gaia, but Gaia was also the game where I've never, it's the only situation ever where my wife rage quit a game. She actually rage quit. She actually walked away from the table. And it was nothing that we did. We didn't do anything. It all happened entirely because of the random number generator. Yeah. And I don't even think it was movement. I think she did something, then got attacked. And then like half her ship got destroyed. So she lost a turn, had to start over. And she's like, I'm done. But the roll to but that's part of the game. Let me take those chances. But the roll to move feels like an arbitrary. I could see if it was like your movement is 2 die 4, So the RNG is somewhere in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
But this your movement is a 1 die 12, which means you have an equal chance of rolling a 1 than rolling a 12.
Or if they had something like the die from
I know exactly what you're saying.
Formula D.
Formula D.
Yep.
Which looks like a die 12. Looks like a die 12, but it's not 1 to 12.
That would make so much better.
That would be so much better.
Yeah.
If they had, that's a great homebrew. Swap out the die with Formula D die. But the point is they didn't.
No.
And so whenever we play Gaia, there's always going to be that one thing hanging over us, which is the unfortunate aspect of roll to move in one of my all-time favorite games, which is Gaia. Number one.
We're back.
Smashing Scissors.
Yep.
My one, I'm actually glad I went first because mine is the most anticlimactic version statement entry yet. Because I didn't bring it up yet, so it's coming in. Number one, concealed actions in Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
But I will say that it was also a tie because I also say if that comes to words, I could flop it off with Pandemic, which is another game with concealed information that I know that nobody uses. Right? So Pandemic has a problem, but Gloomhaven... Pandemic by default you cannot reveal your cards in default Pandemic. Like I said, no one does it that way.
Yeah, no one plays it that way.
That's actually the printed rules. You're not supposed to reveal what's in your cards. But Gloomhaven is part of that as well. And I hate the simps that constantly defend why that rule has to be there.
Yeah.
Every single time I talk about one of the many rules, like I said, Gloomhaven, I picked up that one, but there are a few others.
Yeah.
The fact that the mission ends the moment you kill a creature
and
you lose access to any of the treasure. I'm like, no.
No.
But I think that I said I'm going to pick one rule, and that's the one that immediately we said, oh, we're not playing that way.
See, that's the problem actually I have with Gloomhaven is there's a lot of rules about that game that it makes no sense and takes all the fun out of that game. And I don't understand why, like I said, it's the Kingmaker, that game. And it's just like, there's no reason it should have been that good and why people defend the rule set so much. It is a bad rule set that could have easily been changed to make it a very much more enjoyable game.
Well, I think the Kickstarter supporters pushed it into that upper echelon, and then the wave carried it the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the same thing, like Dune Imperium is in the top 20 of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I like that game, but it's not a top 20 game. It is a fantastically, I would say, one of the more innovative deck building games out there because of how you can play a card in one of two ways. You can use it to purchase, you can use it to do something to bolster something else, or you can play it in one of the 30 places you can do on the board.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that they've countered the randomness of the draw, the randomness of the flop, by having you have specific rewards, tangible rewards from a worker placement system on there.
Mm.
But it's also a thematically thin game.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, it's a Dune game. Really? Because I think Dune House Secrets is a Dune game. Because it's literally a story within the Dune universe. Where Dune Imperium is, we can make it Command and Conquer and it wouldn't change. You can change that theme. It's not like, oh no, this game is absolute Dune. Like, no, it's not. It is a very good mechanic. Like, there are some games where you cannot, we could do that for a list, a game where you cannot remove where it's so thematically perfect, you cannot take it and move and take that game and change the setting. Dune is not one of them. You can change the thematics of Dune.
Yeah. And you know what? I agree.
But that's the reason
I can
why
say
I
that
think
because I
Gloomhaven.
have 3 different versions of Dune. There's Imperium right there. House Secrets is down there. And then...
Which, you have the reprint or the old version?
I have the reprint from... it's up there.
Now, is it the reprint or the new re-release? Because that's confusing. Because now there's 3 versions of the same game. Because there is the original one from 79, then there's the reprint of the 79, and now there's a new revised version of the 79.
It's the Gale Force 9 one.
Well, they're all Gale Force 9.
Oh, well, it's the most recent one.
Well, the most recent one hasn't come out. It's just coming out now. So the new version is exactly the same as your version, except it's been revised so it can be played with 2 people. It's a shorter game.
Oh.
It's a shorter game that can be played with fewer people, but it also carries the iconography and the visuals of the movie. Because House Secrets and Dune Imperium look like the movie.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a Dune special. But yes, that was my choice anyway. Going off topic, Gloomhaven, hidden movement. We saw that coming.
Yeah. Number 1, I'm opening my moratorium on this game, and I'm taking one more shot at it.
Oh, come on. It better be a good game.
No, it's Masters of the Galaxy.
I told you the whole point of the list
I
was
know, but
bad rules in good games.
I know, but this one just had
No,
to be...
I'm striking this from the record.
No.
You cannot talk about Masters of the Galaxy because it's a bad game with a bad rule. You have to pick a good game with a bad rule. That was the rule.
I think that's a bad rule.
I'm striking this. I'm striking this from the record. Of all these games behind the camera and all these games, you're telling me there isn't.
All right, fine. My number one game is going to be then Apocrypha, and not having a crap ton of dice to roll. They changed that rule. It sucks. I want my crap ton of dice to be able to roll.
That confuses me. What do you mean crap ton of dice to roll?
Well, like in Pathfinder, the card game, which is pretty much exactly Apocrypha. There's a time where
except Apocrypha is better.
No.
You can. We're gonna have a debate on that.
Yeah. There's times where you can end up rolling like 20 dice, and you're just, yes, I love just rolling a crap ton of dice.
You can roll a crap ton of dice in Apocrypha. Whenever we play, there've been situations where you've got your 4 dice from your skills, you've gotten the 2 from your skill dice, and you play the right cards. So you get like I've been in situations where I've rolled 8 dice in Apocrypha. It's fun. First of all, Apocrypha is less random than Pathfinder. Pathfinder's the only game. Pathfinder's a game where I got angry at my dice. In Apocrypha, there is so much mitigation, especially with allies. It is such a more enjoyable game. We can get into this debate of Pathfinder versus Apocrypha, and I'd win that. But anyway.
Apocrypha, number 1. There you go.
Okay, fine, we have it. So that was mine. The Flop of 5 in Ascension. Sandra and Kanban, Empty Guns in Nemesis, Roll to Move in Gaia, and Hidden Cards in Gloomhaven.
Mine was number 5, Hidden Planning in Gloomhaven. Number 4 is Monsters Always Attack First in the Dungeons and Dragons series of board games. Number 3 was Multiple Actions to Fire a Torpedo in Uboot. Number 2 was Complex Rules Leviathans. And number 1 was Master of the Galaxy.
So we agree.
No, it's Apocrypha, and I'll be able to roll a lot more dice.
It is a classic scenario of a game that could have been good if it wasn't. That would be the list. Games that could have been good if they only did this. Yeah. Master of the Galaxy is 3 rules away from being brilliant, and the fact that they couldn't 3 major rules. I don't mean like yes to no. I'm talking like taking this idea and just rewriting it completely, but not changing the idea, keeping it having it being a 4X game, having it be a bag builder, having it be cube control, having that idea, and then taking it to the nth degree and making it the best it can be. Like there is the potential, taking all the components without adding new components, you could change the rule book to make that game better. That's what's so infuriating about that game. There's not a situation where, well, you're gonna have to reprint this book. You're gonna have to reprint these components. This component has to be thrown out. You have to 3D print these things to make it work. It is entirely rules. Anyway, this has been Chris
and Dave. And remember, the rules are just a suggestion. Play the game how you want to play it.
Which means ignoring the rules that we talked about. Enjoy yourself.
Yes, absolutely.